I am so stoked to be here today with Ramachandra. And Hari, for those of you that don't know him, he is an executive at LinkedIn. He is the owner of the popular blog, Bits Business. He's actually also in the same mastermind group as Preston and I. And, well, most importantly, he's also a really nice guy. So, Hari, have you anything to add to this very brief introduction?
No, I guess you did better than how I would have introduced myself, Stig, and thank you for your kind words.
Oh, yeah, no
And
worries.
yeah,
I think
I'm thrilled to be here talking to you.
Yeah, and I'm really thrilled that you are here, Harry, because it's really early where you're sitting right now. Like it's three almost 4 o'clock here in Denmark, and Harry just got really early out of bed. So that's really the time difference between the Valley and Denmark. Okay, guys. So I have two segments I would like to discuss with Hari today. The first one is Hari's experience at the annual meeting of Berkshire Hathaway. Right now it's June 2015, so it's not too long ago that we had the Woodstock of capitalism, as what Buffett likes to say himself. And then in the second segment of the interview, we'll be talking about what's the future of Berkshire Hathaway. So let's just start this out right now, Hari, and perhaps you can tell us about your experience about this
Sure.
year's annual meeting.
Yeah, Stig, I'll be glad to share my experience. Um, and this year was special at Berkshire as Berkshire was celebrating its 50th anniversary. I have been a regular visitor to the annual meetings at Omaha for the past couple of years, and it has always been a great experience. Uh, Although, like the kind of what Buffett and Munger say during the meeting uh, doesn't really change because their principles and their value and their thoughts on investing hasn't changed. It's obviously time tested. However, one of the great perks for me is meeting uh, interesting people. Some of them investors, and some of them have become great friends over the years. In fact, as Preston had mentioned in one of our podcasts, I and Preston hooked up in Omaha during one of my visits to the annual meeting. I was returning on my way back from Omaha, and I was reading some book in the airport, waiting for my flight, and Preston just stopped by and said hi, and then we just got got started talking, and coincidentally, we were seated next to each other in the flight too. So we had a great time talking to each other, and then we kept in touch, and that's how I met you too through
Yeah,
Preston. So
and
uh,
Hari, actually, we never met in person, right?
yeah, we never did.
No, no, I was actually at the airport to say goodbye to Preston to pick up my wife, and
Mhm.
so I guess I missed you with like 20 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, I guess so. And that's and for me, that's the return on investment for attending uh, Berkshire's annual meeting. Um, and it's always a fun atmosphere, and it's almost like a community of people who think alike, who share the same values. Uh, and you will see people from all around the world, not just from United States. This time there are a lot of investors from India, um, China, and many other countries, and Germany too, I believe. Um, and one of the things that I I did differently this time around was actually going and standing in the line at the south gate of the CenturyLink Stadium where the annual meeting is held at 3:30 or 4 a.m. in the morning.
Wow, 3:30 to 4 o'clock in the morning. Wow, that's that's early.
So well, I thought that was early, and there were already a dozen or so standing in front of me. Um, and some of them had actually camped overnight. They had
Really?
tents and they were sleeping there. Um, the only other place, Tig, that I have seen such an enthusiasm uh, for um, for opening of a door is at the Apple Store
Uh,
when they released the.
yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I remember when you didn't meet, but at that annual meeting, so that was in 14. I can't remember which time we got up. It's probably around 4 o'clock or something. And you kind of think that you're probably all alone when you come to the big stadium, and there's just like thousands of people, and you think,
Mhm.
dude, something's something's crazy is going on around here.
Exactly. And one of the things that I kind of when I was thrilled is the reason I went and stood in the line at 4 a.m. was because of Guy Spear, who um, who wrote about his experience in his book, The Education of a Value Investor, which I highly recommend to anybody who is interested in value investing and also wants to know more about Buffett. And he said during his initial years to going to Omaha, he used to go right at the beginning of the annual meeting because he thought he would like to avoid the crowd and just kind of, attend the meeting and then take away whatever he can from that. But he realized later that it's more than just attending the meeting. It's basically immersing yourself um, in the philosophy of Buffett and Munger. And and he met Pobrai, who encouraged him to attend the meeting or stand in the line way early in the morning so that he can be right in front rather than being at the far end of the stadium. And true to his words in the book, both Guy Spear and Monish Pabrai turned up at close to 4:30 a.m. In the morning. They stood in line with us. We had a great chat, um, and um, I took pictures with Guy Spear and Pabrai. So it was fun seeing them there, talking to them, and also I met a lot of investors and a lot of really old-time Berkshire shareholders. I met a professor in psychology who in the Lincoln University of Lincoln, and she has been the shareholder of Berkshire Hathaway for past 20 years, and 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 similarly, like the story they tell, they have been attending the annual meeting for decades, and the story they tell about how the meetings were 10 years back, 20 years back, and how they discovered Berkshire Hathaway and why they stuck to Berkshire Hathaway. They're all very interesting.
So,
You can
Harry, I have a question. Did you go by yourself, or did you bring any family?
We were a group of friends
Okay.
who were all interested in Berkshire. So um, we all flew from here in Silicon Valley. So it was fun. Hanging around with friends too, and I met more.
Yeah, that's the best thing. It's just like I'm considering bringing my wife next year, and then she would be asking me, so how's this happening? And I'm telling her, hey, have to get up like 3 o'clock in the morning and stand in line for hours with other people. And she was like, but why again? Well, we have to listen to two guys talking about investing for a
Mhm,
few hours. And she was
mhm,
like, couldn't you just pull that off a blog or something afterwards?
mhm,
Yeah, but it's kind of like, do you want to go to a rock concert, or, or is the music better if you just put in a CD? And yes, the music is probably better in the studio version, but that's not the experience, I guess.
mhm. You brought up a very good point. Actually, many have asked me, what's the value in going all the way to Omaha when you can get the entire minutes of the meeting from a multiple blogs. There are many bloggers who are live blogging as well. But as you said, it's not about the content of the meeting, but it's about the spirit and and also the connections you make, the people you meet, and you can only experience it when you're attending the meeting, when you're there, right there. Um, the
Yeah.
format of the meeting is quite simple. Like the doors open at 7 a.m. So when you are standing in line at 4 a.m. for 3 hours, you're chatting with people, exchanging thoughts, meeting fellow Berkshire shareholders. Um, at 7 a.m. the doors open. 8:30 a.m. they play the video, um, uh, the annual half an hour video. It's usually Buffett and Munger with some celebrities or movie stars um, making fun of themselves, having a nice time.
Yeah. Who was it
And
this
then
year? Uh,
uh, this year, there was nobody in particular this year. In fact, this year they kind of played a recap of multiple videos they had played in the past.
oh yeah,
Uh,
because it was the 50th
yes,
anniversary. Yeah.
yeah. However, it was the main character was the the famous boxer. I forget his name.
Was it Mayweather?
Mayweather. Yes.
Yeah.
So it was Mayweather versus Buffett. So that was
Who
the
won?
test.
I need to know.
Of course, you know who won.
Okay.
So in the video, at least Buffett won. And it was interesting to see Buffett kind of challenging Mayweather in a boxing ring. So um, of course, the video, nobody is allowed to shoot the video, or record the video, as these celebrities don't charge anything to Buffett for those kind of there for their time and their presence in the video. So Buffett requests um, shareholders not to take videos, not to record the videos and publish it anywhere. So far I have never seen anybody do that, and that speaks volume to the kind of crowd you see there.
Yeah.
And
I think that's actually impressive because I remember it too. There was like 50,000 people. I can't remember, but is it like 40 or 50,000, something like that?
it's close to that. It's close to 50,000 this time. This time especially it was much more crowded because of the 50th anniversary. I kind of expected it. Like most of the hotels are booked well in advance. In fact, the Hilton next to Century Link, I heard it gets booked almost a year in advance. So it's almost impossible to get a room there.
Wow.
Um, However, I've heard that Airbnb um, is helping out. And in fact, in one of the letters, Buffett even um, kind of recommended shareholders to use Airbnb because he felt some of the hotels in Omaha were exploiting uh, the customers during that time. So, but again, like, if you book well in advance, at least couple of months, you should be good. You will have, you can get a good one, good hotel just nearby. The one that we booked was probably half an hour drive uh, from the downtown where the annual meeting is held. So it was not that bad.
Oh, okay. So what's happening after? Because you said there was a video, and I guess that is when they open up for questions, isn't it?
Yes. So once the video is played, of course, at the end, they thank all the managers, all the CEOs of the subsidiaries. Before the video, however, Buffett um, takes a round in the exhibit hall where you have stalls of various Berkshire subsidiaries, including Seas Candy, Geico, and Wells Fargo, this time around, IBM had a big presence too. So it's not just the wholly owned subsidiaries, but also companies that Buffett owns, major stakes in. So Buffett makes a round, and also there is a famous newspaper throwing contest where he throws a newspaper onto the doorstep of um, a mobile home by one of Buffett's companies, um, and that is the Clayton Homes. And then he comes back to the main auditorium, and then the video starts. After the video, it's basically the question and answer session that starts, um, and the and these two, both Buffett and Munger, are on stage for almost 4 hours. Starting, they only take a break of 1 hour in between for lunch, but almost 4 to 5 hours straight, starting at 9 a.m. up to 3:30 p.m. They answer questions pretty much. The questions are from a panel of journalists and analysts, as well as from the audience, that is the shareholders. They would have set up booths or microphones across the stadium. There are multiple stations, and Buffett rotates between the panel and the microphone stations throughout this session.
Yeah, I remember reading in one of his earlier letters that, he promised that he will answer all the questions that the shareholders have. I don't think he's making that promise anymore now that he has like 50,000 people and not like 100 or 200 people that comes up. So I don't know.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, they will never be out of their questions if he does that.
Yeah. So then after the Q&A session, because that's basically the end of the annual meeting, what do people do when they're done with the Q&A?
You know what? Actually, after the Q&A is when the annual meeting starts. The real, the formal procedures are done after the Q&A. And that lasts around half an hour because nobody is interested in the annual proceedings. But one of the years, I just sat through the entire proceedings. The people bring up motions. There were some shareholders who brought up motion against some of the kind of businesses. One of them was there was a motion for Berkshire to pay dividend.
Oh yeah, I think they have
That
that
was
every
one of
year,
the,
don't they? They
they want,
almost
right?
always have that. Yeah, yeah, but I don't think it will happen though.
And that motion was defeated by a wide margin. I think most shareholders voted no. That they didn't want. They thought the money with Buffett is much more valuable than getting it back in dividend. Um, and so you do have some formal proceedings after the question and answers, but I see that majority of the shareholders, they leave after the question and answers. They head towards the exhibit hall as it closes at 5 p.m. So people want to catch up on their shopping. In fact, a lot of Berkshire businesses um, do do have a great time during this shareholder meeting. In fact, this year they had opened the exhibit hall on the Friday as well, the day before the annual meeting, for to make it convenient for the shareholder to splurge um, just before the annual meeting.
Yeah, that's great. There's never any excuse not to shop when you're around Warren Buffett. I gotta love
And
that.
he's
Yeah. So afterwards, because it's still pretty early in the day. I mean, you've been out for like many hours already, but it's still early in the day. So what do you do afterwards? Do you just hang out with friends or any formal activities after the meeting?
Yes, I mean, After the annual meeting, there is no formal event, but over a period of time, many of us have, like made great friends who we catch up with during the annual meeting. So sometimes we meet up for dinner on the Saturday, or lunch and beer on the Sunday. Um, and and sometimes you're so tired after a long day. Remember, we were there at 3:30 a.m. and I woke up at 2:30 a.m. To be there. So this time around, I was pretty tired. Uh,
Understandable.
so so I had my dinner with my friends, and then I just crashed after that.
Wow. Well, you're so
So
lucky. I remember when we went, Preston and I were hanging up with some friends, and um, at least in my opinion, they insisted that we should go out and have a few drinks and eat. And I was just like, I'm so tired. But again, I was only there for the weekend, so I really wanted to do all what I could during the weekend. So yeah.
yeah, in fact, there is a value investing conference that happens in Omaha, which is a couple of days before the annual meeting. Um, if you are interested in kind of getting a feel of like what value investing is, meeting great value investors, that might be a good place to hang around. There is a registration fee. I believe it's close to $1,000. Um, and it's a different experience. I have not attended though. Um, for those of who can't make it to that conference, um, they make a lot of their talks and videos available on YouTube, so you can definitely um, kind of catch up on what they do in that conference on YouTube. You don't
Okay.
have to be there.
Okay, that's good. $1,000. It's it seems a bit pricey to me, but yeah. Again, I guess you said it right that Berkshire Hathaway's annual meeting, that's all about networking and all about making new friends and connections.
Correct. And also, one of the things I have observed over a period of time is you're basically you're there to reinforce your commitment towards certain principles of investing and life. Um, One of the things I have realized over the years is reading about Buffett, following his principles has helped me more in life than in investing, because I don't spend my uh, time the entire day thinking about investing. Obviously, I have a day job, so I don't get to analyze as many companies as somebody who is into this profession would have. But what I appreciate um, more is the values that has helped me in my life rather than in investing. Of course, investing is important too. Um,
Could you just
and
could you provide the audience with a few examples of that?
sure, definitely. So one of the things that I have picked up from Buffett is the concept of an internal scorecard that he talks about. And what he distinguishes is between two types of scorecards. One is an internal scorecard, and the other one is an external scorecard. An external scorecard is what you think others would think about you. For example, you try to buy an expensive car to impress others. You hold on to a job because that title sounds good, but you might be miserable every day at work. So these are all external scorecard where the motivation is driven by external factors like what other people think about you, or it might be even financial rewards as well. And internal scorecard, on the other hand, is completely driven by who you are and what you stand for and what makes you happy. And this is a valuable insight. And if you really internalize it, it can be a very good guiding principle in many of the decisions you make in life and in investing. So there are many such principles that you learn as you kind of, drink the Kool-Aid of Buffett and Munger. And going to this annual meeting is like going to church and hearing to the preacher teach. I don't think they will teach anything different from Sunday to Sunday, but you're there to reinforce uh, some principles and
Yeah.
thoughts and behavior.
Yeah, and
Uh,
you know, Harry, is really funny because I have heard this from a lot of people. Like they were saying, I was digging into Warren Buffett to begin with to learn how to invest, and I wanted to be as good as him, at investing. But what really, a lot of people, and that would be including myself, is that they really learned that Buffett's secret, that's not about investing at all. That's actually the way he's living. So
mhm.
yeah, I just have the same experience as you having. It seems like you're having. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, of course. I think a lot of people who are there would definitely agree with that. Um, it's getting crowded every year. I heard in the 80s there were like couple dozen people who used to attend the meeting. But still, it's fun. The more, the merrier,
Yeah,
I feel.
it's true. Okay, so I think that concludes the first segment of the show where we hear about Hari's experience at the annual meeting. He actually wrote a great blog post about this meeting, and I'll make sure to link that in the show notes. Um, the other segment that's is about the future of Berkshire Hathaway. Because yes, it was the 50th anniversary, so there was also looking 50 years ahead. But I think that before we look too much into the future, Hari, could you give your take on why Berkshire Hathaway has been so successful in its structure to begin with?
Mhm. So that's a great question, Stig. In fact, if even before we can understand the future of Berkshire, it's important to understand what has made Berkshire so successful. And then the next question would be, would that continue to be true going forward?
Hmm.
And in fact, in this year's annual report, both Buffett and Charlie Munger have written extensively on the culture and Berkshire and why Berkshire is so successful.
Mm. Yeah.
And if you read Charlie's letter, he has done it. I mean, he describes it very clearly, um, and he talks about a couple of things. What stood out for me um, overall, and I'm not quoting Munger here, but this is my opinion. Um, one of the key one of the keys to success for Berkshire is again um, Buffett's philosophy of having an internal scorecard that led to the staying power of Berkshire. Um, Let me elaborate. Like one of the things that Berkshire does differently than other companies is the in terms of in especially in the insurance industry is they're willing to withdraw from a market or write less premiums when the business environment for writing premiums is not good.
Yeah, and Hari, could you actually explain this to us? Because back in the days, Berkshire Hathaway, well, that was not like a pure insurance company, but insurance was definitely a lot more important than it is today. So how does it work to be an insurance company and then also to be an investing company?
That's a great question, Stig. In fact, Berkshire's roots are in textile mill. In my post, I wrote about briefly the history of Berkshire as well. In fact, Buffett started buying shares of Berkshire um, as the prices were going down. For him, it was one of those net Ben Graham style investment opportunity,
Yeah, what
which
does
he
that mean
calls.
that is net?
Okay, net is any company that is selling less than its liquidation value.
Yeah,
That means you're just if you sell that company today, you're probably paying less than what the company would be worth if it is liquidated today. Buffett also called this cigar butt investing because usually these businesses are not great businesses um, that would stick around for a while, but they have enough left in them for you to take one puff out of it. That's why he calls cigar butt. And in one of the interviews, I remember Buffett talked about how he used to look for cigar butts, and he kind of compared it to somebody walking on a pavement looking for uh, cigar butts thrown on the floor and picking them up. And he said they're soggy, they're dirty, they're not so attractive, but there is one puff remaining, and he used to take that one puff out of these investments. It took Charlie Munger to change Buffett's mindset, and it took C. Scandy actually for Buffett to realize the value of great franchises and great businesses.
yeah,
And that's where he changed his mind, and he said it's better to pay a fair value for a great business rather than a great price for a fair business. So he kind of turned around and changed his investing style. In fact, he moved away from what his mentor Ben Graham had taught him.
yeah. And
So go ahead, Steve.
yeah, I think that's actually a very very profound point you're having because if you look at a company like Berkshire Hathaway, and now I'm not talking about the structure it has today, which we will return to, but if we talk about Berkshire Hathaway as a textile mill, that didn't go too well. I can't remember exactly when they put the plug on that one, but I think it was in the 80s or something, and it was really not a good business. I think I heard Warren Buffett in an interview he did with Bill Gates a few years back saying that the worst investment he ever did, that was actually buying shares in Berkshire Hathaway. Because not only because he bought shares in Berkshire Hathaway, but also because he put so much money, so many capital expenditures into the mill. And
Hmm.
I can't remember the exact calculation because I think it sounds outrageous, but he said it was something like north of $100 billion that it probably cost him because
Yes.
the current structure uh, of Berkshire Hathaway and the structure when it was really an insurance, a lot of insurance in the beginning also, you could more or less do that with any company. It didn't have to be a textile mill to be an insurance company and then a holding company for investments.
That's very
Um,
true.
but what I think is really interesting about the structure that Berkshire Hathaway has is that it's built on insurance. So basically, people will be giving, they'll be Berkshire Hathaway will be writing insurance for them, but basically, that's paid forward. And I think right now the insurance premiums for Berkshire Hathaway that's around 84 billion or something like that.
Hmm.
So as Warren Buffett is usually also writing insurance with a profit, he would actually get money from holding $84 billion dollars and then investing with those $84 billion dollars and then reap 100% of the benefits from that.
Hmm.
I think that's a really intelligent structure to have.
Correct. And Buffett calls that $84 billion as float. A float is pretty much a free money that an insurance company makes by holding on to others' cash. And that's a great advantage to have when you have world's greatest investor and capital allocator using that float to invest in great investments, and that has worked very well for Berkshire. In fact, that's one of the master strokes of Buffett. In fact, Munger talks about it. In the early days, when Berkshire was a textile mill, a lot of textile mills were reinvesting their um, their profits into upgrading their equipments. And as they did that, others also did the same, resulting in be, better productivity, but ultimately the profits were passed on to the consumer, and hence the textile mills never ever benefited out of the improvements they did in terms of buying new equipments or improving their process. This is also called as the Red Queen effect, where it's basically a comparison of a character in Alice in the Wonderland, which is a famous fairy tale, wherein you have this Red Queen character who is running, but she stays at the same place. It's almost like she's running on a treadmill. And that was the plight of these textile mills, where they were not basically reaping the benefits, but they were continuously plowing in their profits back into the business in terms of upgrading their technology and processes. Buffett saw through this. He understood this predicament, and instead of investing his profits back into the mills, he started investing those profits into other businesses and started diversifying Berkshire away from textile mills. And eventually he kept the mills open so that he can make sure that people who were employed there were not impacted. But ultimately it was so painful and so obvious to him that the textile mills were no longer a viable business. So he had to finally shut it down after years of operation. But by the time he shut them down, they were contributing to next to nothing to the revenues and profits of Berkshire.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough business, and that's really something that Warren Buffett talks a lot about. That some businesses are just harder than other business to enter, and I think that the economically painful experience he had with Berkshire have really influenced the way he has invested since. I mean, he's not longer invested, as you said before, in tough businesses. He's not
Mhm.
looking for a turnaround. He's not looking at companies that had a lot of debt. I mean, he's
Mhm.
looking at buying into companies where he doesn't have to do anything.
Mhm.
And it might be Charlie Munger who has influenced him. I think it was actually on one of our podcasts together where you have a quote from Charlie Munger saying that you don't make money when you buy stocks or when you sell stocks. You make money by waiting.
Correct. Yeah. And what I realized, Tig, is I'm a software engineer, and at work, I'm paid to solve hard problems. But whereas as an investor, I'm actually paid to avoid hard problems. If I, so Munger has a too hard pile. Actually, he says like, I have a too hard pile on my desk. And he says many of the investing ideas just goes into the too hard pile. He just doesn't want to spend his time on those ideas and rather stick to those that he can understand and what he calls are within his circle of competence. And that's very important for investors to keep in mind.
Yeah, and I just have a quick comment about the circle competence because a well-known investor, Monish Paprai, which I'm sure you also know, Hari, that's someone that we have been talking quite a lot about before. He's the avid follower of Warren Buffett, and I heard one question. He was giving this talk to college students, and these college students were asking him, so how do I know if this thing is within my circle competence? And he would
Mhm.
say, that question really answers itself because if you ask yourself, is this investment within my circle of competence? it's not. I mean,
Uh-huh.
you are so sure that you know what you're doing or you don't know what you're doing that you should probably stick to what you know that you're doing. So I,
Uh-huh.
you know, I don't think he tried to be patronizing or anything, but it was just so clear to me that that was the right way to look at it.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I mean, if you're asking yourself, do I understand this business? Then probably how to do more work. I think that's what he's trying to say.
Yeah.
And Pabrai is just one of those um, one of those highly regarded investors who's a great follower of Buffett. In fact, as you know, he and Guy Spear also had lunch with Buffett by bidding. And by the way, did you know that this year's top bid was more than $1 million for having lunch with Warren Buffett?
Wow. That's amazing. So more than $1 million for just having lunch with him.
Yeah. So Stig, probably we'll have to wait.
We have to wait, or we have to go splitsies on that one, Harry. Then. Okay, so now we talked a bit about like why the current structure of Berkshire Hathaway has been so successful, and a bit about the story. But how do you look at the next 50 years for Berkshire Hathaway?
Yeah. So Stig, it's a difficult question because 50 years is a long time, and it's really hard to predict anything that far out. Having said that, there are certain things in Berkshire that I'm comfortable with, and that makes me feel that Berkshire has a staying power.
Uh-huh.
Um, in the end, I feel like, there are the two aspects in investing. Um, Monish Pabrai says, whenever you're trying to invest in a business, look for the downside. If you have taken care of the downside, the upside will take care of itself. And that's basically the margin of safety, and also making sure that there is no permanent loss of capital.
Yeah.
Uh, Buffett says it in a more folksy way. He says, rule number one, don't lose money. Rule number two, don't forget rule number one. Um, so when I look at Berkshire, for me, the first filter is what's the chances of Berkshire uh, going away as a business? And looking at the structure of Berkshire, uh, I have the confidence that with the kind of diversity within the company in terms of um, the businesses that Berkshire owns, its wholly owned subsidiaries, and the depth of management with so many leaders who are um, working for Berkshire Hathaway, as well as some of the recent additions uh, into Berkshire family, more specifically the two investment um, uh, kind of, the CIOs, I would say, to Berkshire. Uh, all of that tells me that Buffett is thinking about succession, and he's thinking about his legacy, and he's also thinking about um, the durability of the business itself. Uh, Lawrence Kahneman has written a great book. It's called Berkshire Beyond Buffett. It's a great read. Um, he talks about not only the positives that will help Berkshire to be a great company in the decades to come, but also some of the challenges. And one of the challenges for Berkshire is Berkshire itself, its success as well as its size. So Buffett and Munger have repeatedly informed their investors, their shareholders, that it will be harder for them to achieve in terms of return on their investments what they have done in the past because of the law of large numbers. As the capital they handle grows bigger and bigger, the opportunities to invest shrinks, the pool shrinks.
Yeah,
And
and Yeah, and I think definitely, Harry, you're completely right about that. And this is also something that Warren Buffett has been talking about multiple times before. And I also think that really explains why he's buying into utilities. I mean, he's buying into
Mhm,
energy and he's buying into railways and so on. And, he's saying himself that the reason that I'm doing that is because I can spend tens of billions of dollars with a decent return, not superior return,
mhm,
but in a decent return in these businesses. And that is simply the way it has to be
mhm,
for Berkshire Hathaway to keep growing. So he would be saying, I can't make the same amount of money on net tangible assets as I used to. For instance, with See's Candy, that might be the best example.
mhm,
But it's impossible because he has so much capital that it's possible for him to do. But it is actually possible for him to. I think this year's depreciation for the railways that was like $4 billion, and then he
mhm.
built like a park of windmills for I think it was $4 to $6 billion when it's done. So I mean that just shows that we need to. He's fully aware that he needs to invest in less profitable businesses from now on because he has so much capital. And I actually think it's really interesting if you look at his track record, and he's been completely open about this, how it has declined,
Mhm.
and now he's saying that he had said before that his like threshold was 15% growth in book value. Now he's
Mhm.
saying I can't do that anymore, but I'm pretty sure I can do better than the market.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
So I think he has also openly said that when he thinks he can't do better than market, when he can't earn more than a dollar for the dollar he keeps, he will start paying dividends out. So he's pretty upfront and frank about that too. So when I'm in, when I'm thinking or when I'm considering investing in Berkshire today, I would definitely have that in mind. It's all about the opportunity cost. Berkshire is definitely a safe investment, but it might not return the same, or it might not perform as well as it did in the past, as Buffett and Munger have both openly admitted.
yeah.
Having said that, I think I would own Berkshire any day compared to a S&P index, but at the right price. So we have to be careful there too, not at any price.
Yeah, and Harry, I think you're right, and also think that the strategy for Berkshire that has definitely changed. So, in the beginning, Warren Buffett would pick undervalued companies, and he would usually just buy stocks in them. And when I say just, it's really because when you look at the stock market, you really have a chance of buying pieces of real businesses that are vastly undervalued.
Hmm.
Then today he has so much cash, like he has more than 60 billion sitting on his balance sheet right now, and he can't just meaningfully buy into stocks because if he's doing that, there's a very limited amount of stocks that he can buy, and
Hmm.
he would distort the price and so on. So it's really really hard for him to do. So the actually what you can see if you read the letters that he's been writing here in the 50th anniversary is that he's talking about an acquisition strategy. So he's fully aware that he needs to buy businesses. He needs to buy like say real businesses that are not listed. Heinz might be one example of that, and based on that he would make decent returns. But the problem is that you might find something that is 50% off, like companies are 50% off in the stock market. You can't do that if you're negotiating with the management at Heinz, for instance, because they are intelligent people and they probably want 10, 12, 15 times earnings.
Hmm.
So he would probably still buy those companies, but he can't generate the same form of return as he's used to.
That is true, and he is well aware of that, and that's one of the reason we have to be careful while we are trying to copy Buffett's investments. For example, his investments in some of his stock portfolios might be a great fit for a company of the size of Berkshire with the amount of funds they have. That might be the only um, investment opportunity that would be best suited for them. But that might not be true for a individual investor who doesn't have that kind of sums to deploy. In fact, Buffett says that an individual investor with $1 million or less is at a great advantage compared to him because it is just a law of large numbers. As the capital grows, it's hard to reinvest it at a greater returns.
Yeah, and Warren Buffett, he's a very, genuine guy, and he really likes to praise his employees. So he has these two investment managers, Ted and Todd, and he keeps saying that their investment performance, outperform his. And
Mhm.
when I kind of think of it, it's quite logic because like the total investments, stock investments in the equities market for Berkshire Hathaway, that's $117 billion, and he
Mhm.
has the majority of that. And I think Ted and Todd started with what $1 billion or something around that.
Yeah,
So
they're
I mean,
now they're now around $7 or $9 billion each.
yeah. So I mean, they had definitely done very well, but you also have to think that if you are, say, quote only managing unquote like a $1 billion, it's you still have a lot of different companies you can invest in. If you're managing more than $100 billion, then you'll buy into IBM and you'll buy into Wells Fargo and so on. And I'm not saying that those businesses are bad businesses, not at all. But I think it's probably not realistic that these businesses will grow with say 15+%, as you've seen some of Buffett's previous investment has yielded. I mean, and it's not because he's getting worse. It's really just because his selection of stocks has gotten a lot smaller.
That is very true. Um, and uh, and also, like, one of the things to keep in mind is we think of Buffett as an investor, as a capital allocator. But what is not well known is Buffett, the manager, the CEO of Berkshire Hathaway. The way he is able to keep and motivate great leaders who are the CEOs of his subsidiaries um, is phenomenal and is not much talked about. But that's very evident when you attend the annual meeting. And while talking about the future of Buffett, one of the concerns I would have is who will fill in that shoes? Who can fill in that shoes? Who can motivate these leaders who obviously are not there for the money? All of them are financially pretty secure and independent, I feel. Um, but they're there because of Buffett. Whether it is Ajit Jain, who heads up the Buffett's insurance group, or other leaders, uh, Ted and Tom included, um, uh, who will um, kind of motivate them. Uh, the way I see right now is that most of these leaders aspire to be praised by Buffett. They look up to him and they look for his guidance. Uh, but once Buffett is gone, we are not sure if his successor uh, or his successors, it might be a group of people, will be able to motivate all these leaders and employees. So that's definitely one of the concerns that I would have owning Berkshire beyond Buffett.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree with that. And Harry, let's end the interview on that note that it's he has been building a tremendous business, and you know I don't think that there ever be anyone like Warren Buffett out there. And he's really a unique character, not just because he's really good at investing, but also, as you said, the way he is as a person and the way that he's motivating other people. That might be the real secret to his success. But Harry, just before we end the interview, if some of our listeners would like to reach out to you, how can they find you?
Um, Stick, the best way to reach me is through my blog, bitsbusiness.com. I'm also active on Twitter. I have my links to Twitter, LinkedIn, and my Facebook page on my blog, bitsbusiness.com. So I would love to interact with any of your viewers, and if they have any questions, that would be great. I can learn from them too.
That's fantastic, Hari, and I'll make sure to link to your blog and to the specific blog post about your experience at the annual meeting. But Hari, thank you so much for taking the time, and sorry that I had to get you up so early in the morning to do this interview. But I'm really appreciate that you could set aside time to speak to me and for the benefit of our viewers.
Thank you, Stig. It's always a pleasure talking to you and hanging out with you.